and we swept that in January. But for the large part of it, it's been sideways for about 3 months now. And so for this to conclude in around that 2 week mark, it's just a bit too soon for me. I think that we would get a bit more of a push up, because it's not just going to go boom straight up and form its new high and then capitulate down. It's going to chop upways. It's going to
The
create
Belgian
a
nomad
structure on the way up.
want DM first,
And that does
said bot
take
even 2
time
minutes.
for it to play out. So I still am looking at March at the moment. That can change the more that we go sideways, or if we were to break down. That all does affect the timing and how things can play out. And there is also obviously the option that we already have put in the cycle top, and we are heading into a bear market. I think that at the moment that is still low probability. However, that can start to grow legs if we do start falling below this range and start trading down below, within that 80k, 70k range. Once we start getting into there, it's definitely danger signs. If we start getting below that 74k, which is the old tops over here, if we do start coming below there, it's game over, Red Rover. For me, that's pretty much confirmation. The ultimate confirmation is actually breaking this low, but by that stage, you've lost so much steam and likely you've lost so much value of what you're holding. If you're waiting for the ultimate confirmation, you're going to be you would have done your ass pretty well. So for me, this is like a soft invalidation at 89k. 74k is my actual invalidation, where all right, I'm just going to cop it, and I'm going to I'm fortunate enough that I'll be taking some significant gains on Bitcoin. Alts are going to be in a pretty bad way if we were to get down there, and I'll cop that loss. But I think that is low probability at this point, but it is something to be aware of. For me, I think we're sort of finalizing this this bottoming here. There is some of the guys that I've suggested to pay attention to that are sort of conflicting. Like we've got Michael Pizzino, for instance. He sort of thinks that there's going to be one last flush. It's going to create a new low before it springs out, which is definitely possible. And then there's also X-Force Global. He's more of the opinion that we're going to be going up, putting in a higher low. He's okay if this low here gets swept, but his invalidation is this low here. And he thinks that this low here is going to hold. But if it doesn't, then he thinks that we're turning bear market. So there is conflicting information from great traders. Neither is right or wrong in how they go about what they're charting or technical analysis. It's what works for them and how they interpret the charts. So it'd be interesting to see who comes out in the money. I think one thing that I do take some note from both of them is that they're both talking in a bullish sense. They're aware of the bearishness, but their primary is that there's still more upside to come. I don't think we're going to be seeing 170k, 180k Bitcoin. That's sort of growing on me more and more. Yeah, that's sort of where I sit for Bitcoin at the moment. Ha! Hey, Nomad. The bull, it definitely can be overmistic. I don't think it is, but the markets move in the direction that people least expect. So if everybody is bullish, and there is still quite a few bears out there, but once everybody is bullish and is in that euphoric stage, and are thinking that it can't possibly go down. We're going to the moon. We're going up. We'll have institutions buying. Jim Cramer will be calling for $1 million Bitcoin, saying it's the best time to buy. Michael Saylor will be telling you to mortgage your house to get into Bitcoin. That's when you see tops, and that's partly why I don't think we're forming a top at the moment, because there is still bearishness out there. So you really, for me, I like to wait until the sentiment has changed to a point of everyone's on board and everyone's loving it. Yeah, that's right, Nomad, and that's why I don't think we're turning bear market now. But in saying that, anything can happen. We did hit what are we? We're about 9x from the lows, give or take, which is a pretty decent return. We haven't really had any capitulations of bad actors at the just yet. And if we start getting something like that going, that can spur on the bear market pretty damn quickly. MicroStrategy is one that I'm watching like a hawk. I've got, my feeling is that they make that MicroStrategy may come undone in this the upcoming bear market. The more that he's buying at these highs, his average buy price just keeps on climbing. I think their average buy is around that 65K mark at the moment. So yeah, I think that MicroStrategy may be in a bit of trouble in the bear market, but I don't reckon that they're going to cause the bear market. I think that they're probably going to come more unstuck when Bitcoin finds its low in the bear market, wherever that may be, 30K, 20K, 40K. Yeah. And, they've got, at the moment, they've nearly got 500,000 Bitcoin. So there's going to be a lot of vultures hanging around trying to get their hands on that Bitcoin at a cheap price. So I'll jump in and have a look at, we'll have a look at Injective next. We're getting a bit of a sell-off of Bitcoin at the moment as well. And I believe it's President's Day in the States. So Injective, it's just doing a bit of sideways. Would have liked to have seen it have maybe a bit more of a bounce out of the lows here. We did see a lot of alts suffer pretty serious drawdowns into this low at the start of Feb, and some have bounced back quite nicely. They may, some are up around that 30-40%, even a bit more, up to 50% up from their lows. Those ones that are about that 40-50% are looking pretty strong. Some examples of that would be Litecoin. It got down to about $80. I think it's traded as high as $136 yesterday or the day before. So that's a fairly significant gain. That's about a 60%, maybe a bit more, 65% gain from or bounce out of its lows. So for Inge, we got down to about 11, peaked at 16, 20. So that's not too bad. That's what's that, about a 45% move to the upside. But it's just a matter of what are we doing now. We don't want to see these lows broken, even if Bitcoin makes a new low. We want to see these lows held and holding. And the first telltale here would be if we start breaking down below that $12.90 level. It can still come in and find a high low, but it's losing its structure for any sort of recent support and resistance, where it's going to get a bounce from. And we can draw some fibs to see what that may look like. I suspect that it's going to be below the previous trading area. So 50% is at 13.75, obviously a key level. 618 is down at 13, which is right on the bottom of that trading range. So if we got a little run down a wick to the golden pocket and a bounce back above the 50%, that would be looking pretty bullish for Inge, I think. It is important to note, though, for Inge, it is right below all of its prior trading range for 2024, pretty much. It is actually below the entire 2024 range. So it does have a fair bit of work to do to get back above a lot of these levels, and it will find resistance. But they can move, and it has moved. If we look back at where it came from, it's trading down at around $1, $2 for a good period over here. I think it's almost 6 months before it started breaking up, and once it started breaking up, it really got a boogie on. So the fact that it has come back down to fill in these gaps, and by gaps I mean these are just straight candles up, so there's not a lot of volume that has been traded over a period of time in these moves up. So the fact that it's coming down and it's filling in those gaps is good. It does provide some stepping stones for moving higher up. The fact that we're trading around $15 though, and it's below this little accumulation range, I'm not really too keen on that, to be honest. I'd really like to see it starting to get it back above it around that $17. We'll have a look at Inge BTC. See what this is doing. Yeah, so it had this wedge, and it's fallen out of the wedge. We would have gone over that at the last session. But again, this is quite similar to the USDT chart in the pattern that it's sort of forming. It does look better because it is sitting above this range here. So this doesn't look too bad. The main level here to watch is up all the way up here. That's the first level of that we want to see claimed, and it has a few confluences. We've got the top where it rejected down, and then over here it was also providing support to this range. So that's quite an important level. And then on top of there, we'll then come up to this level over here. So they would be the two major levels against Bitcoin that I'd be watching if I was in a futures position, and the markets are trending upwards, and Inge is gaining on Bitcoin. I'd be looking to take some profits up at this level here and taking some more profits, probably around this high over here, because that's where it did start its sort of move down, because we can see we're getting high lows, high lows, high lows, the rejection, and then that started bringing in lower lows. So this is probably looking better than the USDT chart, which we don't often get to say. The Bitcoin chart is looking better than the USDT, but it's being very narrow-minded when you look at the whole picture. The whole picture doesn't look that's super, to be honest. I wonder if it's putting in new lows or not. It's not putting in new lows, so that is a good sign. Holding above the tops of this accumulation range over here, so that is some positives as well. It's just a matter of, have we found a bottom or not, because it's been, after it made its peak back in 2023, it's just been on this massive downtrend, and you would expect it to turn around at some point. It's just a matter of when. I mean, I would have thought back here would have been finding the bottom of its downtrend, because you've got the support of this zone over here, and it just grinded to the side before it fell over again. Definitely likely that this can be it, but got to urge on the side of caution when you zoom out and see how long it's been going on for. It's a bit like jumping into the ETH/BTC chart. This thing has just been going in a downward spiral for 2.5 years now, and we could be finding a bottom now, but got to be pretty ballsy to go with it. There is some confluences with maybe a bit of a double bottom going on with this low over here. It has had a nice bounce forming a decent wick to the downside. But again, it's got a fair bit of baggage above it. And for Ethereum, we've got these tops are important. And then we've got these tops that are important. And that's a fair way away. This one's about 12% move up. And that's a 12% swing against Bitcoin. And this one's a 30% move up, 30% swing against Bitcoin. So these levels will get tested at some point. It's just a matter of when. How much longer is this going to go on for? The Bitcoin dominance is going to take a turn at some point, but I just wonder how much of an alt season are we actually going to get. I don't think it's going to be like years before. I think it's going to be very selective in what moves up. And what continues to move up, because we have seen some pretty big gains in like Solana, XRP, the meme coin space. I think meme coins are pretty much done with now, in my opinion. They were great for a long time, and a lot of people made a lot of money. I'm not one of them that made money on meme coins. I didn't get on that gravy train, but I think that definitely helped Solana move up throughout its bull market. I think Solana's starting to show a bit of weakness at the moment as well, and maybe that it is in a bit of trouble of making significant gains to the upside, I think. But just based on that, I might jump into NIA, because that was another one that was requested. So NIA isn't looking super great. It is looking quite weak, to be honest. So we got the low at 270, more or less. The move up was around about 30%, I think. And at the moment, we're sitting loosely around 20% up from the lows. So maybe that was a bit high, perhaps. Could have been maybe a 40% move up, realistically. So it's actually not too bad. It's sort of in line with what's been happening across the market, but it is showing a bit more weakness here. Again, the same story as Injective. We don't want to see this low broken if Bitcoin makes its move down. We want to see that held and a high low formed before we get any moves up. To the upside, there's a lot of leg room here. We do have these bottoms over to the left. So clearly the most recent high at that $3.60 mark is pretty important, and that had provided some decent support back over here in these drops last year. So that would be the first hurdle, and then we get a bit of breathing space. Around that $4.80 to $5, we have seen a fair bit of support and resistance throughout the trading ranges. When we were testing these levels, it was providing some pretty decent support before it eventually capitulated, and you can just see it actually. We got support here, support again. Once we broke below the lows and we tested it from the underside, it rejected into that sort of death spiral. NIA, I was extremely bullish on it, but it's definitely growing thin and dissipating a little bit on me. I think there is upside for it, around that 3 to 4x mark from its current price. So I'm still holding a substantial bag of NIA. Don't get me wrong, but this is a little worrisome here, that we are going to be coming down and testing some lower levels potentially if Bitcoin has a bit of a sell-off. We can jump into the NIA Bitcoin chart as well. And this is probably where some of my worry does stem from, is it's coming back and testing. It's actually put in a lower low, albeit just a wick, which wicks are fine. I don't mind wicks to new lows, provided that it doesn't break back below again. So it makes life a little bit more clearer or easier, I suppose, in the fact that how am I going to be able to see this better? Maybe I'll go to a monthly view. Might be able to see it a bit better. Yep. So it makes invalidation quite easy here. And that's essentially if we start getting closes below this low and start forming some lower highs and lower lows, then that's essentially the invalidation for me for NIA. Can it still move to the upside? Yes, it can. It definitely can on its USDT pair, but that's a sign of weakness. And we saw that with the sweat BTC pairing. Once it got below that 2023 low, it's just really been suffering from that point forward. It was suffering prior to that, but once it got below there, it had really started to suffer. And I don't want to see that happen in NIA, but we have to be aware of what happens when it does break to new lows. There isn't any structure below to start providing support and resistance. And it's the inverse of when you get a breakout to new highs. When you enter that discovery mode, prices can continue to go up and up and up. We saw it with Injective, for instance. Once it started breaking up, it went all the way to $50 from $2 or $1.50 or whatever it was trading during the bear market. Once it got that breakout, it just went really high. And the same thing when things break down, they can go lower than you expect to. So that's something that I'll be watching for NIA if it was to break this low and close below it and start forming some lower highs and lower lows. I'm going to be looking to cut my losses and exit the position at some point. So that's NIA. Is the worst behind us? It's hard to say. I'm quietly confident that it is, but it's really hard to say what's going to be happening with Bitcoin at the moment because it is getting to the crunch time where it is going to break up or down, leaning towards a break up. But if it was to break down, depending how far it goes, some of these alts can really suffer some more. Looking at it holistically, Bitcoin dominance is it's been due to be pulling back for a long time, but I don't know if it's the memes or the grifters that have been in the space that have just been ruining it. But it's just been holding up, hanging on a bit longer than a lot longer than what I would have thought. That run up to 65% could have been like a capitulation to the upside before the change of trend, just shaking out all the weak hands before it changes. And I have sort of thinking about it, I have seen that on Twitter a bit where people are turning into Bitcoin maxis that would have otherwise held alts. And I think it's a bit like marking a top in a cycle when everybody's euphoric and thinking that price can't go down anymore. The same sort of mentality can be applied to Bitcoin dominance where the dominance just keeps going up and keeps wrecking alts and shaking out the weak hands, and everybody starts turning to Bitcoin saying, well, my alts keep getting, excuse my French here, my alts keep getting shitted on and getting fucked. I'm just going to go into Bitcoin. And at that point, when people are starting to move into Bitcoin because they think that it's going to be, it's a far smarter and better investment than alts, that would be the point of when Bitcoin dominance tops and the alts then start moving because you've got retail out of alts into Bitcoin. The market makers are holding the alts. They want to pump their bags, and you get that rotation of capital. So just something food for thought. The charts look atrocious, but perhaps there's a bit more to it from a psychological perspective. Oh, sorry guys, I've missed some messages. Yeah, some alts like NIA haven't even reached all-time high. Yeah, that's right, and a lot of them won't reach an all-time high. I think not sure if you caught up in the last session, Mystic. I was saying that I'm in doubt that Nia will. Probably around that $13 mark is where I think we might see a high for it in this cycle. And that doesn't mean it's a bad project or it's a poor investment. Well, I suppose it does mean it is maybe more of a poorer investment in comparison to other alts, but hindsight is a beautiful, beautiful tool. Um, but perhaps it it's not ready. It wasn't ready for its time this run, and there's greener pastures in the future to come. I'm definitely and not advocating then that for that to mean hold on to alts throughout a bear cycle. Do not do that. I don't advocate for that whatsoever. Alts will capitulate 90% from its current price, and then they can drop a further 50% after that. So in total, they might drop 95%. Um, pulling over. Yeah, it's a pretty grim sight. The old alt market, Hunter. There's a lot that are down, and there's only a handful that are holding up. It's pretty hard. I was reading, there's something ridiculous, like 20,000 or 50,000 new coins being created each day. Um, it's ridiculous. Yeah, the volume has been sucked out of the market. And we have seen this before. We saw this back when almost 12 months ago, before we got the breakup. It's the volume dried up. There was just sideways action. There wasn't much volatility. Bitcoin was essentially a stable coin, and everything got really boring. There wasn't much going on Twitter. There wasn't many people talking about it. I remember in the Sweat chat was getting pretty dead as well in the trading chat. And then Bazinga, we broke up to the upside, and it was after we had the breakup, everyone comes flooding back. Um, yeah, so perhaps we're in a similar position to what has happened previously when we get close to those breakouts. So, but I suppose there's only so much we can talk about, guys, when there is not much going on. I think hang in there, have those invalidation levels, and have those invalidation levels. I think it is important. Um, there is, I think that we're still going to see some upside to come, but I think maybe we need to just lower our expectations a little bit um, on the whole. And I have been lowering my expectations. Patience, boy. Yeah, like I don't think we're going to be seeing like $1,000 Solana and things like that. It's just a bit too out there for me. Look, I hope we do get a crazy alt season and we reach astronomical figures and everyone makes lots of money. But just try to be a bit more grounded and realistic, I think. Yeah, there is a lot of interesting things going on over there, Hunter. I was going to save it for next week, but I can touch on it now. I think what's some of the stuff that's happening in the new administration is gonna. I think it's gonna cost the economy in the near future, and it does play out with the land cycle. Um, there's a lot of retrenchments, sackings going on in the government world. I was reading an article where the houses in Washington trading at or being sold at over $100,000 discount because there's a mass exodus of employees. And that can sort of start to spur things on a little bit. But it is a bit of a necessary evil what they're doing there. Like in Australia, we're very much the same. Where we've got, I'm a public servant myself, but 1 in 10 Australians are a public servant, and it's a crazy figure to have. So we need to have a big clean out ourselves. And I think the governments that have been before us try to fix the unemployment rate, etc., by putting on all these jobs, and it's really just a band-aid fix as to what's really going on in the economy. And at some point, um, it all sort of comes to a head. Until after March. Yeah, whatever legislation comes out, that will be interesting. Could be a good a good time for a topic, especially if it's bullish legislation. Get that final leg up. Everyone thinks that we're on. Governments are buying. It can't go backwards, etc., etc. You could get a 20% spike to the upside, but it could mark the top. See what happens. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Baldrick. All right, guys, a little bit of a shorter session today. Hopefully, we'll get a bit of action over the next week, and we can have a bit more of a longer session next week and spend a bit more time in the chart, seeing what's going on. But when there is no action, it is a bit harder to keep our heads in the charts. So, yeah, we'll just see what happens. Yeah, that's what I like doing these catch ups, whether they're shorter or longer. It is what it is. But you guys have a good evening, and I'll set something up for next week. Until then, stay safe, take care, and I'll speak to you in Discord.